Hello and welcome to Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Joe Marhamati. He's with Sunvoy, and I wrote a very special intro for this podcast besides the one that you already heard. So you ready for it, Joe?
I think I'm ready, yeah.
Okay. Hey, Joe. What you doing with that Sunvoy app in your hand? There we go. Just kind of messing around. So I used to play some more guitar for the intro of the podcast, and then I just thought it was time to go back to it. So yeah, thanks for coming along here and joining me. So Joe's not the first person that we've had from Sunvoy. We have Joe's friend and co-founder on an April 5th, 2023 podcast. That was episode number 92. If you want to go back in time a little bit. And his name is Hervé Billiot. And so I was just listening to that podcast. It's always good to refresh yourself after a year, So I recommend that everybody goes back and listens to every podcast from the past, right? Sounds like a good idea. So let's introduce Joe a little bit more here. He's got a really cool profile on LinkedIn that I'm checking out. And so right now he is the vice president, CFO, co-founder of Sunvoy. And that's the main thing that we're going to talk about. Also co-founder of Ipsun, which is related. Looks like he's an investor in AI. That's kind of interesting. We could talk about that. Then he's done some of this national stuff. We're talking about the United States Department of Energy as a physical scientist. I guess that's as opposed to a metaphysical scientist. So you're not a metaphysical scientist, is that right?
I'm actually also a metaphysical scientist. Thank you for asking. If you keep scrolling down, you'll see I have a degree in metaphysics as well.
Oh, okay. Let's keep going. So then I see for the Executive Office of the President, 2014. So that's the Obama administration time. Senior program manager. You must have been telling Obama what to do, like you told him to go and meet up with me. Also, the U.S. Department of Energy has something to do with the President, Office of Sustainability Support, and the Office of the Loan Programs. We know about that because one of our solar celebrities, Jigger Shaw, is running that loan program office. And it looks like, too, you must have been there at that interesting time when all that stuff that was happening was going on that everybody still talks about over there with 2008. We could maybe get into that a little bit later. And then, oh yeah, the degree in metaphysics. I'm still looking for that one. We have to go down to the education. And we've got the American University, Duke, SUNY. That's in New York. I know that. And most important of all to me that I'm mostly impressed by is you have a NABCEP certification. That's NABCEP Technical Sales. And you've worked on these different projects and things too. Oh, and another thing too that we have in common is tennis. Looks like you were the treasurer of the United States Tennis Association in Washington, D.C. So that's kind of cool. I was a tennis player for a good part of my life. So we've got all that stuff in common. I still haven't ran across the metaphysical part. So I think you're messing with me, Joe.
No. I have a degree in philosophy with a concentration in metaphysics and epistemology, but I guess I took it off my LinkedIn profile.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's kind of cool, though, too. It was kind of interesting. I was just listening to a podcast this morning, Lex Friedman, and he had some guy on there. I listen to podcasts while I'm sleeping. It helps me get my mind off of stuff. The more boring, the better, stuff like that. And it was about some real heavy stuff about, are we really here in this reality and all that kind of stuff, too. So you could probably get right into that, start quoting Kant or all these great philosophers, I guess, then.
Sean Carroll, was that the physicist Lex Friedman was interviewing? I love that podcast. That's a good one.
That sounds right. I couldn't even tell you for sure because I started off listening to another thing on YouTube that had something to do with inverters and grid forming inverters and things like that. And then when I woke up in the morning, we got Lex Friedman talking to some guy about some heavy philosophy. And you obviously know more about that than I do, but maybe I just do, but it's in my subconscious.
Oh, well, I haven't studied that stuff in 25 years, so I think I forgot all of it. But, it was fun at the time.
Great. Okay. And so tell me a little bit and tell everybody else a little bit about Sunvoy and what Sunvoy does and what Sunvoy's been up to.
Well, Sunvoy is the first and only customer portal and fleet management app for solar installers, built by a solar installer for solar installers. So I started a solar company with my partner who you mentioned, Hervé, I think on episode 92, about 13 months ago, you talked to him
Yep.
on the podcast. We started a solar company in 2016, and we have been growing that company for about 8 years now. And midstream in building that company, we realized that our customers had no visibility into their project development. We'd solve a project, and then they would sit there for 3 to 6 months, kind of wondering what stage their project's at. And that when we turned the system online, that we were handing them multiple manufacturers monitoring apps. So we were essentially handing the customer relationship over to somebody else after we spent all this time and energy building the project and educating the consumer. So we built a white labeled app for ourselves that we then white labeled for everybody else in the solar industry, spun off a second company called Sunvoy, that's a software as a service company. And so now we're building these branded apps and customer portals for vertically integrated solar installers all over the world.
Okay, let's do some education here. So you said white label, and my name's Sean White. So everything that I do is white label, I guess, but maybe you could explain the definition of white label that you are referring to just for the average person.
So white label means that when we build a customer portal or an app for a solar installer, it's their brand, their logo, their colors hosted on their website with a custom URL, and we'll even build a branded app in the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. So even though Sunvoy is technically building that for the solar installer, it doesn't appear as though we did. It looks like the solar installer built it themselves for the homeowner. There's no markings of Sunvoy. It's really the solar installer's brand first.
Cool. So that means the smaller company could compete with the bigger company. So you have the big companies like Sunrun and SunPower and Sun whatever else. And then the little small company can have an equivalent type of an app that looks really cool to the customers.
You got it. Yeah, and not only that, but what we're building has infinitely more functionality than what the national companies have built. They all obviously have their own app, and that's great. And they've got, IT teams of hundreds of people, and they can build whatever they want. But if you've ever gone solar with one of those companies, their app is pretty static. It does two, three things, but Sunvoy is evolving. We're adding new features every single day. We have integrations with every piece of hardware in the solar industry, and if we don't have it yet, we are building it. So it's something that's going to continue to evolve by leaps and bounds because it's our sole focus. Whereas if you use the app of a national installer, you're going to get 2 or 3 features, and that's about it. So it's actually not only leveling the playing field with the national installers, it's going above and beyond what their apps can do.
Cool. And then you also mentioned software as a service. And I like how you actually said what the acronym is. And so I hear a lot of people in the tech industry. So I'm out in Silicon Valley, and a lot of my friends are in the tech industry out here. And we recently had an event with NorCal Solar, and we had all these people giving speeches that are developing different types of software and AI, and they call it SaaS. And maybe what you could do too, a little bit more, is explain about what SaaS means and software as a service, as you said, and maybe give it just another point of view.
Yeah, well, thank you for saying that because, in BC, it's the same problem. Like everyone speaks in acronyms, it's like more acronyms than actual words. And so you have no idea what anyone's talking about in any government meeting. So it sounds like it's the same on the West Coast. So yeah, it's software as a service means essentially buy, don't build each aspect of your IT stack. So rather than going and like building your own CRM and building your own accounting system and building your own customer portal.
So CRM means customer relationship management.
Customer relationship management. Yeah, sorry.
That's like Salesforce or something like that.
Salesforce or HubSpot or yeah. Oh, damn, broke my own rule of the acronyms. Hopefully folks know what CRM is, but obviously not everybody will. So thank you. So yeah, most companies generally are not going to go build their own website from scratch on their own server in their basement. They're not going to go build their own customer relationship management platform. They're not going to go build their own accounting system. They're going to buy these services from software companies that only focus on that niche of the industry, and they're going to save a lot of money and get a whole lot more functionality out of it. So it's the same thing here. If you've ever used a customer portal for your dentist or your doctor or some other service provider that keeps you in touch with that company, we're doing the same thing for the solar industry. And it's just specific to solar, built from the perspective of an actual solar installer.
So maybe you could give us an example of the different types of things that you coordinate together. It would be like what, inverter software, stuff like that.
Yeah, so it's actually pretty simple. We basically take your CRM and we take all of your hardware And we take all that data and we use a proprietary matching technology to bring it all together in one place. So say you've got 10 different inverters you've sold and installed over the life of your business, and you've got 5 different batteries, and you've got 3 different consumption monitors and 2 different EV chargers. Well, we can bring all that data together in one place. We can match it with the customer data from your CRM. So now you can see all of it in one place from the installer side for fleet management, but also the homeowner can see it all from their side. So they're not having to log into 4 or 5 different platforms to see their solar and their consumption and their battery flow and their load control and their circuit level consumption and their EV charging. It's all in one place.
So does that also include accounting software like QuickBooks and that kind of stuff?
So it's not an accounting software and it's all post-sale. So we can talk to other pieces of software. We can integrate through APIs. Oh gosh, I don't even remember what that means. But basically a data stream that takes data up and down from your CRM database to your accounting system in any direction you want it to go. So it's not an accounting system, it's not a field service app, it's not a CRM, it's not an ERP, it's not any of these other parts of your tech stack, which I can make recommendations for all of them because I've built out that tech stack in my solar company. But this is really kind of a new genre of solar software. It's saying after you sell a solar system, don't leave your customer in the dark. Give them some connection to you, the solar installer, to track their project and see all their energy data for 30 years from the minute they sign the contract through the 30-year life of the system.
And I just looked up API, and that stands for Application Programming Interface.
That was on Jeopardy a few weeks ago, too. I should have remembered that one.
Were you really?
That was not me. That question.
Okay. Wow. Also, another thing too, that I do get that question a lot of times about CRM, customer relationship management, and that's like Salesforce and stuff like that. Maybe we could explain a little bit what that means.
Oh, yeah. Well, I could not have asked for a better segue than that because Sunvoy actually has a big announcement. This is actually kind of a pre-announcement. This is not even really public, but we have started a new joint venture, a new company called Sun CRM. And if you go to suncrm.solar, you'll see that we are building out a solar version of HubSpot and Salesforce. And these are essentially softwares that allow solar companies to manage and track all of their projects in a single location. So you can see all of your projects by deal stage. You can see all the attributes and properties associated with that project, like how many panels, what are the kilowatts, what are the number of batteries, all in one place. You can do your sales and marketing, your operations, your service tickets, your reporting. You can build your website and your blog. Essentially, you can do almost everything you need to do with your business outside of like accounting and inventory and field service. But most of the core project management and sales and marketing you can do with these softwares. And there's a lot of them. We integrate with about 30 different CRMs. Some of them are very cheap and accessible, and some of them are more robust and sophisticated, like a HubSpot and a Salesforce. And we're very focused on building out a solar version of HubSpot and Salesforce. I get this question. It sounds like you get it too. What CRM should I pick? I don't like my CRM. What do you know about there that's better? And so suncrm.solar is basically just trying to fill that demand from solar installers constantly asking, what CRM should I pick? And so I've built out a solar version of HubSpot over the last 6 years, and we are making that accessible to any solar installer that wants it. When you join the Sunvoy platform, we can integrate it. We can help you build it out. We've got someone on staff who's just focused on that. And we recognize the need for a CRM that is solar specific.
Mm-hmm. And I imagine there's probably a lot of smaller solar companies that don't really have a CRM.
Oh yeah, I was one of them once upon a time. We had a spreadsheet and we named it Icarus, and then we flew too close to the sun and got out of it and moved on to HubSpot. Don't try to run your business in a spreadsheet unless you want to never sleep and hate your life, because eventually you're going to get very frustrated and you're going to run out of cells in the spreadsheet and brain cells for managing that. And so don't do it if you can help it, unless you've got like 10 projects or 15 projects you want to manage in a spreadsheet. Go for it. But HubSpot is free to start. The starter package is like free or $30 a month or something like that. I recommend it for solar installers. I think it's a great solution. But don't go too far in a cheap CRM or you'll pay the price, because if you ever want to scale, then you're going to have to move all your data over into a more sophisticated CRM like a HubSpot or a Salesforce.
Great. Yeah. And I know something about Salesforce. My girlfriend works for them, but she doesn't talk shop too much. So I don't really know probably near as much as you know about that kind of stuff. And yeah, so CRM, customer relationship management. And so that would be how a solar installer would track jobs and things like that, and, figure out where they're selling and be able to crunch the numbers and the data and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, it's called a Kanban view. So it's when you can see all 20 plus stages of your process in one place, and you can see the number of projects in each stage. You can move them from one stage to another. You can visualize the project. In our solar version of HubSpot, you can see the name, the kilowatts, how many batteries there are, EV chargers, load control, the attachment method. If there's an extended warranty just in the job name, you can visualize the whole project. You can have multiple pipelines for sales and for operations and for referrals and for service. We even build a pipeline for R&D where you can track how you're reviewing new technologies through your R&D committee. There's reporting, over 1,000 reports on anything you can imagine that you would want to report on in your business. And then the whole sales and marketing engine is another bag. I mean, you can literally automate all of your customer education and communication when you get a lead all the way through sale.
So when people are using your software, do they need to log into these other softwares like Enphase inverters or Solar Edge or Salesforce and all that kind of stuff? Or is it all just in one place?
It's all in one place, and there's actually no work to do in Sunvoy. So Sunvoy is a customer portal and fleet management system that essentially runs in the background invisibly without any project management, without any data entry, without any work. It's a view-only platform for the most part that just takes all this data from disparate places and puts it in one place. And then it runs as a marketing engine in the background, generating reviews and referrals and a good customer experience without the solar installer really needing to do anything.
So where do people enter the data then? They keep entering the data in the other platforms, like for the inverter, for Salesforce, for other CRM software, or they still enter it there, but then all of it goes to Sunvoy?
You got it. Yeah. So our customers are already doing this today. They have a CRM like a HubSpot or a Salesforce or a Monday.com or a Zoho or a Job Nimbus. We integrate with all of them. They're already putting all this information in their CRM, but their customers have no visibility into their projects. What was purchased, what stage of project's at, what's coming up next, all the energy data from the hardware. So it's just taking the data that's already there and it's aggregating it in one place.
Okay. Yeah. So like you don't have a customer and you go, okay, here's your system. Here's the Tesla interface for the Powerwall and the Enphase interface for the inverter. And then you might have some more inputs for things that are just like monitoring power for electric vehicles, for things like a span panel or a lumen panel, something like that.
You got it. Yeah. So we've gotten to the place now where if you started a business 8 years ago, you might have been doing solar only. Now you might have a customer that's got solar, consumption monitoring, maybe circuit level consumption monitoring, a battery, load control, an EV charger, the list goes on and on and on. You might have somebody that you have to hand 5 different apps to at PTO. None of them have any brand relationship to the solar installer that is in the community, educated the consumer, built the project. I've actually talked to people. I know you were at the NABCEP show because that's your deal. And there was a guy there at a booth who's in the solar industry who has solar on his house who couldn't remember who installed the solar project. He thought SMA installed the solar project because that was the app on his phone. So he literally could not remember to tell me who installed the solar project because the status quo in the solar industry is we hand over the consumer to the manufacturer at PTO on a silver platter, and good luck for them remembering your business. That's kind of what we've built and people understand is totally normal.
Yeah, I guess there could be some upsides and downsides to that. So the upside would be if you're a terrible solar installer, they don't know where to find you. And then the downside is if you're a really good solar installer and they want to send all their friends your way.
You got it.
And then let's go back a little bit too. So you said PTO and you were referring to permit to operate, also called an interconnection agreement, like when you're ready to go, not personal time off.
Yeah, either one, but usually at the end of your solar project, you want to operate, but maybe you also want to take some personal time off because they could be pretty traumatic.
Yeah, they should just do them both at the same time. Yeah.
At least take a day off, especially if your solar project took 12 months to get installed.
Yeah. Hopefully it doesn't take that long, but I've seen people take 2 years, unfortunately.
Me too.
Yep.
Yep, it happens.
And so another thing that I was looking at too is that it was saying that you help generate new business. So how does that work? Triple referrals. I saw something on the website.
Yeah, well, if you think about the status quo in the solar industry, that we sell a system and then the consumer goes into a black box for 3 to 6 months, not really knowing what's going on with their project, hoping that it's going to get installed in a timely manner, but probably checking in manually with the installer once a month, once every couple of weeks to ask what's going on. So that's the front end. And then the back end is you hand over, 5 different apps to the consumer and they forget who installed the system. So no wonder the cost of acquisition is so high in the solar industry because that's the status quo. And that's not a great experience really for anybody. So what we found is when we implemented a branded customer portal in our business, it tripled our referrals. And it shouldn't have been no surprise, not just because that customer experience is so much better now, but also because if that homeowner submits a referral through the manufacturer's app, good luck getting that lead because that lead doesn't belong to you anymore as the solar installer. It belongs to the manufacturer. And do you think that they're going to give it to you? Or do you think that they're going to sell it and get the highest value they can for that lead? So no wonder the cost of acquisition is $2,000, $3,000 or more for some installers. And that's hurting the solar industry because that's the status quo. So we saw that when we turned that on its head, we tripled our referrals. And that's when we decided to start Sunvoy and make this available to all solar installers.
Great. And so it's just like an app and you can go buy it on all these app stores, or I guess I shouldn't say buy it. You download it on the app store, the customer would, and then they can see what their system's doing.
Exactly. Yeah. So it'll say Shaun White Solar, built by Shaun White Solar, instead of, Shaun White Solar built by ABC developer. So there are some companies doing this, but it's not white labeled. It's built by a developer, and then they put their name all over it. So their brand is recognized so that other people can see it. When we build an app, whether it's a desktop-based app, mobile, tablet, or in the Google Play or Apple App Store, it's totally white labeled, meaning nobody can tell that the solar installer didn't build it themselves.
Great, great. I noticed that you're a B Corp. That means a benefit corp. That means that you're really cool, like Patagonia or something like that.
Yeah, well, Ipsen was the first thing that we did when we started that business was we decided to certify as a B Corp because B Corps put people and planet above profit. And that was the core value that we wanted to bring into starting a solar business so that everybody that joined our business knew that we valued the workers and the planet above just the bottom line. And it's incredible. People find you through the B Corp like directory, like they only want to work with a solar installer that's a B Corp. And we've got some of our most talented people hiring through B Corp. They only wanted to work through a B Corp. And so they found us that way. And so you can attract talent through B Corp status, and you can also get customers through B Corp status because there's only so many solar installers out there that have that certification.
So what's the process? I know that you can make a corporation in all the different states. A lot of people use Delaware, but there's a nonprofits, there's C Corps, there's S Corps. Do you start a corp and then make it a B Corp? Is it a government thing or is it something different?
It's actually not a government thing at all. So it's more of a goodwill, marketing, branding opportunity to tell the consumer base that you care about putting people in the planet above profit. So it's a very rigorous process. I actually went through the recertification a couple of years ago, and it took 10 to 12 months to go through multiple iterations and questions and panel approval and final approval for your recertification. It takes a long time because they're digging into every aspect of your business, how you treat your workers, what your executive compensation is. Are you hiring locally? Are you doing any evil stuff? There's like 10 different categories that they dig into and ask for your financials and ask for proof of everything you're saying. So it's a really rigorous standard. And I encourage solar installers to check it out because it does distinguish your business from the pack.
Oh, I guess I can't be a B Corp because I do evil stuff like, once in a while eat deep fried, have some ice cream, stuff like that.
Yeah. No, you can't do that. Is that the most evil thing you're doing though? Because that's not that bad.
Yeah, that's about it these days. I used to be a lot more fun. So B Corp is something that's not government then. I was always wondering about that. So that's good to know. And so is it already like a C Corp or an S Corp and then you switch it over or you add a B Corp to it?
You add it, but it's not even adding. I think that the corp is really kind of confusing because it makes it sound legalistic, but it's really just like it's an organization, it's an accreditation, kind of like NABCEP.
Oh,
It's like I have the NABCEP company accreditation and I'm a B Corp. They're kind of on par, with one another. There's no legal, regulatory, any connection.
okay, great. So it wouldn't have to do anything with the IRS then.
No, IRS doesn't care if you're a B Corp.
Okay. Oh, they should.
They should.
They should give you a break. They should give you more tax refunds.
I couldn't agree more. I actually gave that feedback. I did a little roundtable with the B Corp folks in one of the senator's offices last year. And that was what I said, is that B Corp should get a corporate tax break because it costs money to pay your workers well and give them health insurance and care about sustainability and not throw solar panels in the dumpster and care about what you're doing in your supply chain. That stuff costs money. And so the social value of doing those things is greater than the cost that it would cost to do that through taxes, right? So if you can offset your corporate tax through 1 or 2% discount on your corporate tax by being a B Corp, I think it would encourage more businesses to look at it.
But do you live in Washington, D.C.?
I do.
So that doesn't matter because you go talk to a senator, you're not represented, so you don't matter.
That's true. I don't matter. And I've learned this the hard way. But Ipsen was in Virginia, and Virginia does matter.
Oh, Virginia does have a senator. Okay. Yeah, that's right. We should get rid of their senators too.
Should get rid of the Virginia senators?
Yeah, why not? If we're going to get rid of the Washington ones, Virginia's close. Might as well get rid of them too.
Well, we just need to give Washington, D.C. a couple of senators, and I'm sure that'll happen any day now.
Yeah, maybe like Washington, D.C., Puerto Rico. I think we should bring the Philippines back into the United States.
Yeah. And Greenland? Weren't we talking about bringing Greenland in the last administration?
Yeah, why not? Get South Pole, something like that. Give them a couple of senators down there. That would be really powerful. Like you'd just be a senator just by living there. There's about 2 people there, something like that.
Right, exactly. 100% representation.
Yeah, I kind of do like democracy. So I think that you should have a representative there in Washington, D.C., but I know that's very controversial. And speaking of Washington, D.C., you have some really good incentives for solar, perhaps the best SRECs in the country. And that stands for Solar Renewable Energy Certificate, SREC. And that means that somebody that installs solar, I believe the SRECs are worth somewhere around $400 the last I checked. So that's 40 cents a kilowatt extra on top of the value of the electricity and the tax credits and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of amazing that you have that over there in Washington, D.C. And so congratulations on that. And just wanted to tell people what SRECs are. They're pretty much only worthwhile to a great degree in Washington, D.C., in New Jersey, and in Massachusetts.
Yeah, SRECs have been a powerful driver, and through the renewable portfolio standards that were established that gave us SRECs. So, if you put solar on your roof, you not only save money, but you also get this additional credit over and above. So, in DC, it's kind of wild. Like the SREC is worth 3 to 4 times the price of power. So there's actually 0-cent PPAs or power purchase agreements in Washington, DC. Anyone can go solar for free.
That's amazing. And so that would be a production-based incentive, and it's just for how much electricity you make, and you get reimbursed for just being green, for making solar electricity. So they pretty much separate the value of the benefit of the electricity to the environment versus the financial benefit of the electricity to using electricity. So I like that. Really cool thing.
That's great.
We interrupt you for a very important announcement. Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast has been brought to you by Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast. That's right, Sean White is sponsoring his own podcast, and he wants to remind you to go check out some of his classes. You can go to SolarSean, that's solar, SEAN.com, and then click on the links to check out his classes. You can check out his heat spring classes, and you can also hire him to teach classes for you, like at your company, something like that. Now back to the show. So some other things too that I just noticed on your LinkedIn profile that I thought were pretty interesting is you've done some stuff. You've been in the solar industry for quite a while, and you worked on some systems that were like molten salt, parabolic troughs, things like that. Largest PV plant in the US at one time. Maybe you could talk a little bit about those things. It just sounds interesting to me.
Yeah, it was. This was back in 2008. Actually, yeah, joined the Department of Energy in 2008, right before the financial crisis in the Loan Guarantees Program Office. It was the LBG back then, and they rebranded it the Loan Programs Office. After the Recovery Act of 2009, we were given $30 billion plus to get out the door as fast as possible to create jobs during the Great Recession.
What percent of that 30 billion did you get personally?
I'm not allowed to reveal that. But it's in some court files. No,
Yeah, okay.
I promise I didn't embezzle any money from the government.
And I want a percent of your percent for letting you be on the podcast. But
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. We'll work that out afterward. Yeah, no, it was a really exciting time. And, that program is still very successful, being run by the renowned Jigar Shah, and they're doing, all kinds of cool stuff now as we were back then. We were funding the first electric vehicles, including the Model S, the Fremont factory for Tesla, the first large scale, multi-hundred megawatt solar PV plants, the first large scale commercial solar thermal plants. Well, one of which I was focused on in Tonopah, Nevada, is 10,000 billboard-sized mirrors focused on a 600-foot tower with molten salt going up and down this tower, getting heated up to 2,000 degrees or something, which would, heat some water, generate some steam, turn a turbine, and generate electricity, about 110 megawatts at $1 billion in project costs. So that was a truly wild experience because I went out there once a month to check on this project in the middle of Nevada, which is kind of like being on Mars and seeing this giant 110 megawatt plant, the first of its kind in the United States, trying to get off the ground and prove commercial viability. Now, I think we all kind of know that CSP thermal technology kind of lost out to PV.
CSP, concentrated solar power.
Exactly. Sort of lost out to PV and is not commercializing in any significant way in the United States as it is in Chile or Australia. But it was a cool experience. And that was the point of the program, was like, let's take some technologies that have been matured at DOE that we know work and see if we can put in some public money with some private money and scale them up, prove them out, and then let the private markets take over. So we would finance the first of 3 commercial instantiations of a technology like thermal. And then we would step out, let the market take over. And the perfect example of this is Tesla. Tesla was on its last dollar. If you watch Revenge of the Electric Car, they actually highlight the loan program in this movie where Elon Musk was down to his final dollar at Tesla, and the government swooped in, provided a $500 million loan, funded the Fremont facility in Tesla Model S, and the rest is history.
Yeah, I know that was great. And I know that when you give out loans, anytime there's a bank or anything like that, you're going to have a couple of loans that fail, and hopefully most of them don't fail. And there was a couple of loans that failed, of course, that the companies didn't survive. It was a very competitive time, especially with the price of PV modules like dropping so drastically. I would even guess that perhaps half of the solar manufacturers in the world might have gone under during those couple of years, 2008, 2009, around that time. And then what was happening is some of the news organizations were saying, like, look at this renewable energy, it's so bad. And I remember like they had Solyndra. That was the big thing that they were always trying to point out. Solyndra. And Solyndra did look really cool with those tubes and all that stuff. I was kind of hope that they bring it back. But they couldn't compete against solar module prices going down like, I don't know, half of what they were the year before, something like that. The price just dropped like crazy. And so the loan program made a whole bunch of money and stimulated the economy. So it did what it was supposed to be doing. But then you'll see some naysayers. I remember when Romney was running against Obama and he was standing on the side of the 880 freeway there in front of the Solyndra factory with a podium giving a speech. I thought that was a little bit funny and sad at the same time, but
Yeah. Yeah, well, if you look at the performance of that program today relative to any project finance investment bank out there, the performance is exceptional and greater than your average group in the private industry. And the reason was a lot of very talented people came into that program and are still there because they believed in the mission of financing these proven technologies from DOE labs and helping scaling them up to commercial viability. And it's just so cool and inspiring to see now Jigar Shah taking over that program and just putting it on steroids, all the technologies that it's now funding. It's a real driver of innovation throughout the energy transition.
Yeah, I just read something recently. I don't remember the exact source, but it was something like he got into Time 100, top 100 people or something like that. Do you know that?
Yeah, he was just listed, I think a couple of weeks ago, as I want to say one of the 100 most influential people from Time magazine.
Yeah, so let's see. Last year was climate, and it looks like just this recent one was Time 100 of not just climate. So pretty cool.
Yeah, and he's a DC local native too.
Oh yeah, DC native and stuff. You probably run into him at Whole Foods.
Oh yeah. Whole Foods, Aldi, Safeway, all the grocery stores.
Just not the gas station. You guys probably don't go to those.
No, I don't. I didn't. Do those still exist?
Yeah, there's some people that are going there like swiping credit cards, stuff like that.
I don't believe that.
Yeah, it's a good place to go to the bathroom.
Oh, okay. Well, I wonder what he's at.
Yeah, I kind of feel bad for their bottom line though if I just, use the bathroom all the time. But
You got to buy some chips when you're in there because it's.
that's what it's there for. Yep. So pretty cool. Let's see. Is there other things that you want to talk about too, like Sunvoy or anything else?
Oh my God, I have a whole list of questions for you.
Let's do it. You're going to be the interviewer. Switch it around.
Let's switch it around. I mean, how many chances do you get to talk to the illustrious Sean White? I got a whole list of questions here. Unfortunately, I have to go in 10 minutes, so I'm gonna go too quickly. Okay. If your neighbor asked you, Sean White, should I pay an extra 20 cents a watt for rapid shutdown? What would you say?
Gosh, that's a good one. You're putting me on the spot, man. I always try to stay in the middle of controversies like that, or at least give both sides. So for rapid shutdown, there's the people that like rapid shutdown, people that make module level electronics and things like that, firefighters, those kinds of people. Then there's people that don't like rapid shutdown because it would be less expensive to just use a string inverter like a lot of other people do. And it's not really my job to take sides. I have had people that were on different sides of the equation on the podcast. So Bill Brooks, he was the one who even came up with the term, rapid shutdown and 690.12. And he was on the panel with some other people that were like firefighters and things like that. And so kind of what the idea for rapid shutdown was we want firefighters to put out fires. And so rapid shutdown is only for firefighter safety. And if firefighters don't put out fires on houses that have solar because they're afraid of getting shocked, then that's not a good thing. And then I've got some other friends that think that rapid shutdown, we should get rid of it. And one of the things that has happened is some rapid shutdown devices have actually started fires. And so that's not a good thing either. Some brands worse than others and things like that. And then I had another guy that's not too fond of rapid shutdown on the podcast not too long ago. And he's an interesting guy, Derek the Solar Boy. And he actually has a website called ul3741.com. And so there's some companies that are getting things that UL listed where they're not doing module level rapid shutdown, but they're still doing rapid shutdown. And so he's all about that kind of stuff. And so talking to my neighbor, well, it's like you just have to follow the rules. And pretty much the rules are you got to do it if it's going to be on the roof. And you got to do rapid shutdown to 1 degree or the other. It's called rapid shutdown for PV systems on buildings. So if you put it on the ground, you don't have to do rapid shutdown. But if you put it on a building, you pretty much have to do some form of rapid shutdown. There's no way around it. Or you can move to Europe or Mexico, maybe. They might even have rapid shutdown in Mexico now. I'm not sure. In Canada, they have rapid shutdown, but there's certain countries you can go to. What are your thoughts, Joe?
If my neighbor asked me if they should pay 20 cents extra for a rapid shutdown, I would probably just look at the shading on their house. Frankly, that to me seems to be the most practical consideration. If they've got a lot of shading, I would probably recommend it. If they're in a market where SRECs matter, like DC, generally speaking, the big two manufacturers of microinverters and panel level optimizers have auto reporting for SRECs, so it makes your life a lot easier for generating SRECs. But if they had a big open roof that's unshaded and they didn't have any administrative requirements like auto reporting of SRECs, I would probably recommend the string inverter.
Well, the thing is, when you're on a building, you have to have rapid shutdown, but there are types of rapid shutdown where you can use a string inverter. There's some of these new UL3741 types of systems. And there's also some systems where, even if you're going module level, where it doesn't do maximum power point tracking, where it's just pretty much like an off switch at every module. Or sometimes there's a mid-circuit interrupter where it could be every 3 modules, different ways of going about that. But you still, I mean, if you're on a building, you need to have rapid shutdown. Another thing too that I thought maybe I should mention is there is sort of a fallacy out there that a string inverter doesn't know how to deal with shading. PV modules have bypass diodes in them. So if you have each string of PV, let's say you have 10 or 20 in series and you shade one module, you only lose one module and the other modules are still maximum power point tracking, working just fine. One of the benefits, though, when you do have a microinverter, if you had one module in the shade, then you would still get shaded production. You wouldn't bypass it. You would just get maybe 10% or whatever that shaded light would give somebody of what would be not shaded. So like I'm just saying, if it were in the shade, if you're getting 10% of the irradiance, then you would get 10% with the microinverter. Whereas if you had a string inverter, you wouldn't get anything because you'd be bypassing that shaded PV module. And it's not even really just a PV module that it works with the bypass diodes. It would be a third of the PV module because there's 3 bypass diodes in each PV module. So you might lose 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, or if you had 2 modules involved, 4/3, something like that.
So yeah, no, it's probably the most controversial subject in the solar industry, and it seems like there's a big appetite right now for string inverters again because interest rates are up, because conversion rates are down in the solar industry, and everyone is trying to look for cheaper modules and cheaper inverters to try to sell. Oh, I know what I was going to ask you. Are there any studies that you're aware of that you think are reliable around this subject? Because it's so hard to perfectly replicate the exact same home and the exact same shading and the exact same conditions with one panel level optimization versus not. And so anytime there's a study that comes out, it's kind of like, well, is it reliable? Is it real? Have you seen a study around this that you think is valid?
The study as far as like shading goes or rapid shutdown goes, or
Shading, yeah.
so I'm sure there's studies out there. I'm sure the big companies know what's going on with that too when they're out there selecting equipment. But yeah, it would be nice if there was more in the way of independent studies, because of course, you're going to get information from somebody that makes module level maximum power point tracking devices, and they're going to say, oh, ours is so great, and you shade one module and it takes out the whole string, which is not true. Then you're going to have the string inverter people, of course, trying to exaggerate their side. And the big argument for the string inverter people too is just like, it costs less maintenance, things like that. And if there's less maintenance, that's less danger for people out there replacing devices under modules too. So another argument for that side.
It's very real. We have to get up on the roof to replace one microinverter. It's a pain in the butt, as opposed to going out once every 10, 15 years to replace a central inverter. It's kind of like, would you rather have 20 dishwashers that each wash one dish, or would you rather have one dishwasher that washes all your dishes? So I think that there's a trend a little bit more in the direction of string inverters now, just because people want cheaper equipment. And I think there's been a lot of over monitoring. With the panel level monitoring, it gets homeowners really spun up about why one panel is producing slightly less than the other.
Yeah.
That was my other question for you is, I've heard anecdotally that in Australia, a lot of systems don't have monitoring. It's just like slap it on the roof, move on to the next one. And that's part of the reason that it's half the cost. But you also don't have consumers getting spun up over their monitoring. Have you heard that?
Yeah, and I've heard of sometimes too, people will change the monitoring a little bit so it's not module level. So even if they do have module level monitoring, they'll make it so just the installer gets to see that data. So the homeowner doesn't go like, why is this one making 4 watts more than that one? And, you have to go like, I think a bird pooped on it, or, just like things are a little bit different from one place to another. There's a roof vent nearby, shading it for a little small period of time, stuff like that. So there's lots of different theories about what should be done about all that kind of stuff.
That's one thing Sunvoy has done, by the way. We don't show panel level monitoring or all the other bells and whistles that the inverter manufacturer's app shows. Just shows the production and consumption. That's it.
Great. And is it an option, or just that's what it does for everybody?
That's just what it does for everybody. And that's what most people want. Even for me, that's all I look at day to day is like, okay, how many kilowatt hours should I make? What did the bell curve look like today? because it kind of gives you a sense for the weather. But, I don't look at the panel level or whatever it's produced in the last year, so it's just over analysis, in my opinion. And Sunvoy kind of condenses that data down into like very simple modules rather than all of the data that people get spun up on.
Yeah, and by the way, if there's any listeners out there that live near me in the San Francisco Bay Area and they feel like climbing on a roof, I put 53 microinverters on my mom's roof, and I think about 5 of them need to be replaced right now. And I just get too busy to do it. So,
Who's the installer out there in the San Francisco area?
oh, I'm looking for volunteers.
Oh, you just want random people like podcast listeners climbing on your roof?
Yeah, maybe, or maybe somebody's trying to, get some credit to get their NABCEP certification, something like that.
By the way, you just kind of like gave your cards away there, right? Because you just told everybody what you put on your mom's roof. So now everybody really knows what you think about panel level optimization and rapid shutdown.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I can even explain that too a little bit more. I was doing work for different companies. One of them was called Solar Universe. They're not around anymore, but it was a fun company to work for. Lots of fun people working there. And when they went out of business, they gave me a bunch of modules that we were doing training with. They sold some to me for $20. Some of them came from this other organization called Infinite Solar that was in Philadelphia, and they were doing some classes out this way too. So they were pretty much all dissimilar used modules. And then I went on eBay and I found some microinverters, and I think they might be like 215s or 250s, not the types you could buy anymore. I bought them used and I put them up there too. I think I got the microinverters for like $20.
Wow.
So that was also another reason, like if you're going to put dissimilar modules up, you're not going to put those on a string inverter too. But personally, I do try to not be biased towards one side or the other. I try to, give everything a chance. And I know like a solar installation company, I'll recommend to them, like once you get it down, just use the same stuff all the time. Like instead of having 10 different inverters that you use. But for me personally, if I'm going to do an install, I want to learn about this kind of rack and that kind of module and another kind of inverter and every different time. So I always try to switch it up personally.
Oh, okay. So how many installs do you actually get to help with, like in a normal year? Are you out, like, can you go out anytime you want and help and try a new technology? Do you have that opportunity?
Yeah, so I have a California contractor's license, so I can do it, but lately I've been too busy to really go out there. And I kind of, I've worked with some friends and helped them out with some jobs, and I do a lot of consulting and stuff like that. Like this morning, I was consulting somebody with putting in string inverters on a plant that was just under a megawatt. So of course, or not of course, but that was not a rooftop system. And they were using some SMA string inverters, and I've got to answer their email, figuring out where's the transformers and all that kind of stuff. But I just keep really busy. But as far as me getting on a roof, that doesn't happen as much as it used to.
Okay.
How about for you?
Not as much as it used to. Maybe once a year I get out there. What I really enjoy is just R&D. So we have had an R&D committee at Ipsen, still do, where we would just review new products together and go through like, what do you think of this product? And what do you think of that product? And look at the spec sheets and try a demo project. I've had my house as basically an R&D facility for the last decade where we try out all kinds of new technologies and products and batteries and inverters and racking and vertical solar and all kinds of cool stuff. So that's what I really love, is just trying out new products.
Great. Yeah, that's always fun. And then I help places set up training labs and all that kind of stuff. And the roofs that aren't so dangerous to fall off of, because OSHA requires fall protection at 6 feet. So we make a lot of 5'11" roofs.
Nice. That makes sense. Yeah, so you can kind of just jump up there.
Yeah, and people still use the fall protection, but there's less trouble, I guess you could say.
So will you come in and build a training facility for any solar installer that wants one? Is that like a service that you provide?
Sure. And a lot of times it's not just a solar installer looking for a training facility. Like recently, I was helping some people out at a nonprofit in Massachusetts do some of this stuff, but it could just be any different kind of place.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's a great service to the solar industry. There's a lot of people who need that.
Yeah, nothing like having a nice, good fake roof that you can put lots of holes in and not worry if it leaks.
Exactly. Yeah. One less roof leak to worry about.
Yeah, and I remember teaching a class in Philadelphia. This was about, 15, 16 years ago. It was called Infinite Solar. And I think we had 30 kilowatts of lights inside. And these guys would set it up so there's this button and you push the button and the lights come down and get closer to the solar array. And it was really nice in the winter because it would heat the room up and we could turn it on and make a few 100 watts. So there's a lot of inefficiencies going on there. And then at the end of every class, they figured out how to get all that, like if you're working with an asphalt roof, there's all this like abrasive, like sandpaper like stuff. And they would take the old stuff and they figured out how to like wad it up together and plug it into the holes where you couldn't even see the old holes. So that was kind of a neat thing that they were doing. And that was a nice big roof. But I have noticed too that it was a bigger thing to have practice roofs 10, 15 years ago than it is now.
Yes.
And I think because it's so easy now to get a job where they just go, let's put you on the roof with 5 other guys and they'll show you what to do. I think that's probably what's going on.
That is definitely what's going on. Yeah, there's definitely a need for more training facilities all over the country for solar installers individually, because there's a big workforce development shortage too, of just people who want to get into solar and, they need the training to be able to do it.
Yep. So call me up, people. Take my HeatSpring classes.
HeatSpring is great. Wow, it's really evolved and it's just such a cool platform. I have so many other questions for you that we didn't even get time to get to today because I have to run, but this was super fun.
Oh, okay. Well, let's do it again.
Let's do it again. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was fun. Also, I remember seeing you around a lot at InterSolar over in San Diego, and I remember like ping pong tables and everybody was having a great time that night. So
that was a great conference. That's my favorite show. I love that show.
Yeah, it was just kind of cool being there at San Diego with was it the gas lamp and gas light district over there? I always get it mixed up. The gas light district. I guess that's how they used to see you down the sidewalks, and we'd be walking up the main street, seeing all our friends. And it was kind of cool. It was like small enough to where you would see people over and over and know them and have conversations that are kind of like ongoing one day to the next. So that was pretty fun, but I like all the other conferences too. I like everything.
They're all great. Oh, the NABCEP is great too. I mean, that's your baby, right? That's also my favorite.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun too. I got up on stage with a Michael Jackson jacket. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah. I saw that. That was cool.
Talking about 690.12, B2, 123 ABC, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be you and the NABCEP guys.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Yeah, I really like NABCEP certifications and all the NABCEP people. Super awesome.
I agree. I look forward to seeing you all there next year, and hopefully we can do this again soon.
Yeah, I'm going to be like a lot of the local RE Plus conferences and all that kind of stuff too. So great.
Cool.
And do you want to tell people where to find you? Anything like that?
Yeah, go to sunvoy.com. See if you qualify for being a Sunvoy installer. Check out some of our videos. Or if you're listening to this and you know of a good quality installer that would benefit from having their own branded app and customer portal, go on the Sunvoy, send them to the Sunvoy website and check us out on LinkedIn.
Well, thank you so much, Joe Marhamati, and thanks for listening to Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast. To find out more about solar, about storage, about all kinds of cool things like the things that we have just been talking about, go to solarshawn.com. All right. Thanks so much, Joe.
Thanks, Sean.
And say hi to Hervé.
I will.